let's drill down a little bit more on debt, which was the focus of a Sidelines forum held today by the Center for Sustainable Development at Brookings in the United States. The forum features members of the newly established United Nations Expert Group on Debt and other high-level experts that canvassed innovative pathways that are practicable to address the worsening global debt dynamics, especially for developing countries, including Africa. Let's listen.
First of all, let's remember that before COVID, we were not talking about a debt problem. You know, more or less the debt ratio in the developing countries to GDP was 54%. After COVID, 64%. So let's be clear that this problem has developed a stronger after systemic shocks. So we had COVID, we had the interest rates hike in the developed world that made servicing very costly for the same debt. And after that, we had the cost of living crisis. So in a way, because we know that when we talk about debt, and let's make that first point, the first thing we think is that is to blame for who is to blame is policy makers. Yes, they made the wrong choices and then they got into debt. I'm not saying that that's not the case in everywhere, but what I'm saying is that the global problem of debt has come because of systemic shock. So we need to treat them in a different way. My second point is that we thought in 2024 that the problem was going to go away because we thought growth was going up and interest rates were going down. And so we were hopeful that that was going to take, care of the main problem of debt in most of the countries. And so defaults were not coming in. So that is not happening. And so we have to know that the problem will worsen. And it's true that we haven't seen more defaults, but what we say, as Mahmoud was saying, is that countries are not defaulting on the debt, but they are defaulting on development.
The first is there a debt crisis? It depends on how you think. If you see it as a development problem, or do you see it as a repayment problem, which is a purely financial issue? If you see it as a development problem, I'd say that actually there is a serious debt problem.
Can you hold it closer?
Yes. The simplest way to see that are what are the channels through which debt affects growth and development. There are these three channels. The first one is fiscal space. It crowds out other spending, development spending. The second one is crowding out. It actually that to the extent that governments are borrowing, especially domestically, then other people can't borrow, especially investors. And so you end up lowering private investment. And then the third thing is that you can end up creating an uncertainty because of this debt overhang, in the sense that even if everything looks fine, people start to worry that there is a crisis coming. And as a result, they start to sort of take actions. One of them, of course, is private investment and so on. So I would actually say that all three of these channels are pretty active right now. So in that sense, I would say there is a problem. So then you say, okay, how does one fix this problem? The way that we think about it at the World Bank is that there are these three aspects of it. The first one is debt transparency, right? So in the sense, you need to know what are the debt levels. You need to know at what terms this debt has been contracted. And just so you all know, we have an obligation of all the countries that owe money to the World Bank also have to report their external debt to the World Bank. It's called the debtor reporting system. Yep. And what we've done is we've tried to make this more transparent by not just publishing those data, but actually publishing a report that actually summarizes the big trends and so on. It's called the International Debt Report.
I want to come back to the source of the problem, the original sin, if you must, and that is inadequate discussion of the fiscal issues. Ajay Banga's focus on jobs draws attention to what the problem is, we aren't going to lift the quality of life of people. Homi and Patrick a few weeks ago had this debate. Is this a systemic crisis? Now, in global terms, not. But if you happen to be poor in a poor country, then the impact on your everyday life is indeed systemic.